Welcome, everyone. A very warm welcome to our conversation this evening. I'm Sarah Esser, and I'm your host for this evening. This webinar is brought to you by the Girls on Track UK initiative, which is managed by Motorsport UK. I'm very excited for our conversation with TF Sport. We've got a fantastic and very talented panel and lots of great questions to put to them. So, without further ado, let's dive right in and meet our panelists for this evening. I'm going to pass over to Tegan to begin with, who's going to introduce TF Sport and herself and what she does.
Hi, so I'm Tegan. I am the team coordinator. So TF Sport race in the World Endurance Championship ELMS and the Asian Le Mans series. So we kind of travel all over the world, racing in 3 different championships. The World Endurance Championship obviously has the highlight event of Le Mans 24 hour, which is super exciting. We get to do that every year. This year we're doing it with our brand new Corvette cars, hence we're all in our Corvette t-shirts. But the last couple of years, TF has been running the Aston Martins, which obviously the team has had lots of success in. They've won the category at Le Mans. I think GTE, Jono will be able to tell you a bit more. I think it's GTE Pro-Am, is that right, Jono? Yeah. Which is really cool. So yeah, we're happy to be talking to everyone tonight.
Thank you for such a great intro there, Tegan, and very excited to learn more about your journey for what's coming up with Corvette. Jono, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks for joining us this evening. So I'm the race engineer for TF. In ELMS, I run the 97 Aston Martin, and in WEC, I run the 81 Corvette. So as a race engineer, my job is to link the technical side of the team, so the mechanics building and preparing and setting up the cars, with the sporting side of the drivers driving, the strategy, and what to do on track.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jono. Looking forward to hearing more about how you got there as well. Raquel, would you like to tell us more about what you do?
Hi, everyone. My job is data engineering car 82. And basically my job consists on monitor systems and car health while the car is running, just make sure that everything works properly. And then during the races, keep monitoring those vitals and assist race engineers with strategy and calculations over the whole event.
And Sophie, last but not least, or not quite last, because we will have Paula joining us later in the webinar. And when she joins us, I will make sure I introduce her. But Sophie, over to you to learn more about the incredible role that you play at TF Sport.
So I'm number one on the 82 Corvette. My job role includes maintaining and running of the 82 Corvette, managing a team of other mechanics, liaising with the chief mech and engineers, making sure the car's legal and safe for all running on tracks, and front gunning pit stops.
Incredible that this is what you're doing now, and I'd love to learn more about how you got there. But first, now that everyone's heard a little bit about what all our incredible panelists do pop some questions in the chat if you do have any questions that you would like to ask. But Sophie, I'd love to learn more about your journey to becoming number one, because it probably wasn't very easy.
Yes and no. I think it's as easy as you make it, as easy as you want it to be. I think so. I started in club motorsport, sort of worked my way up, kind of got thrown in the deep end in club motorsport. My first weekend, we rolled the car, and I ended up running one of the cars. So yeah, it was pretty full on. And then joined touring cars, BTCC, sort of started as a number 2, worked my way up to number 1 with Colin Turkington, and then yeah, joined WEC. My aim was WEC, and my aim was number 1 in WEC. And yeah, I think with a lot of hard work, dedication, sort of anyone can do it, really.
That's really inspiring. And what would you say is the biggest challenge that mechanics face in your job role, and how do you adapt to this challenge?
I think there's many challenges. I think adapting is just learning different styles of how to do one job. Like, so many people have different ways to do one job. It's learning the best way for you to do that job. So yeah, you've just got to adapt to the situation, and unfortunately sometimes you've got to adapt on the spot. So it's, yeah, kind of having a good team around you in order to be like, this way is not working for you, why don't you try this way? So yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight to begin with, Sophie. And Tegan, I'd love to know how you got to your role. Was it something you always knew you wanted to do? How did you find out about being a team coordinator? It would be great to hear how your journey to where you are now.
So I was quite lucky. I grew up in a family that was already loved motorsport and kind of had an involvement. My dad used to kart when I was a baby, and then he started racing in a championship called Fun Cup, which is like they look like Herbie, they look like little beetles. So I was really lucky from a really young age. I was taken to one, I was kind of taken to all these different tracks around Europe. So I always knew like I kind of wanted to work in motorsport, and I always remember like watching Formula One as a kid, and there was always someone managing the drivers, and they always had a clipboard, and I would always say to my parents like, I want to be that person. I want to be the person with the clipboard, like chasing everyone around and telling them what to do. So I kind of didn't know what that job role was at the time. I just kind of thought it was someone who helps to manage and helps to organize. So I went to university and I got a degree, which in some ways has helped and in some ways hasn't. Like it was obviously a great thing to do. I think sometimes I look at the job I'm doing and I maybe didn't need to go to uni, but obviously it was a great experience and you get to meet different people. And then I started when I was at university, sorry, I was working at Silverstone on the events team, which was obviously a really good experience. And then yeah, just I think networking is so important in the industry, and you network with the right people and they give you like information or they give you introductions into different people. So yeah, I got introduced to multiple different championships. And then during COVID was a bit of a struggle. That's when I finished my degree. So obviously motorsport kind of stopped. And then I just emailed so many different teams asking for like work experience or like a chance to come and travel around. One of those was now one of our rival teams in the European Le Mans series, but I was with them for 2 years, which was really cool. And then yeah, I joined TF about 2 years ago. So yeah, just lots of different pathways, I guess. But yeah, lots of experience.
Very cool. From what I've experienced, everyone gets in a very, very different way, and everyone has their own journeys and pace of getting there, which is what makes it so exciting. We've got a question that's come in, whether you did a placement year, Tegan.
No, I didn't. This sounds awful. And like so many of my friends that I was in uni with did do a placement. A lot of them kind of wanted to do corporate events. So they kind of, I studied events management. So a lot of my friends down corporate wanted to do corporate events, which I think is probably really helpful if you wanted to like doing an intern and doing a year's like a gap year. Because I worked at Silverstone, basically was at university 2 days a week and then was working like the other 3 or 4 days. So I didn't feel the need to do a placement. So I kind of just dive straight in.
Very cool. And you mentioned that you did a lot of outreach to different teams to try and, get some opportunities. And I guess there was a lot of no responses, maybe. What do you think made your outreach stand out for the ones that you did get a response to? And do you have any advice for anyone who is looking to reach out to teams? Because I think it's just getting more and more competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say so the team I actually got lucky, I actually ended up working for a couple of years. They actually remembered me from like going to Autosport show and working different events. So again, it's just networking. Like that one person, it only takes that one person to then give you that lead into a team or that introduction to the right person within a team. Yeah, I emailed so many teams, like it was kind of crazy. But yeah, you get rejected by 100, but it only takes that one person to give you that opportunity, and then your foot's in the door.
Really, really cool that you've shared that, because I think a lot of people will be able to resonate. They're probably going through the same thing, reaching out lots. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Jono, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started doing engineering degrees. I did an undergrad at Coventry and then went on to Cranfield and did a master's in motorsport engineering. And that kind of led me into doing some work at the weekends at the tracks and kind of the more standard route into being a race engineer. Started as a data engineer at weekends and then full time.
And what made you decide to do a master's versus not doing a master's and trying to, find somewhere straight away?
I felt at the time the undergrad was much more industry focused, a lot more maybe automotive than motorsport. So I felt I needed the extra year of specific motorsport training and also the contacts and the industry experience that came with the Masters at Cranfield.
Did you find it really beneficial?
Yeah, massively. So there was the course and the technical knowledge that it taught, which was way above where we were at undergrad. But also, I think the strength of Cranfield is its links with industry. So I got some work experience through that course doing data in what was World Series by Renault at the time. And that, I think that was the foundation that kind of built my career off that.
That's really, really cool and really important around the networking side of things. Do you have any suggestions of places where anyone who's wanting to become a mechanic or a data engineer would go to network?
I think just getting to the racetrack, and it's such an important part of the job to understand how it works being at the track and the sporting side of it, and whether you can go karting or just get with a team and wash wheels, being at the track and understanding how it works and when to release the car, what the weather's doing, and how it all affects the performance of the car, and how you can start to find these little gains is really important to being a race engineer.
Some really, really good advice there. And it seems to be a running trend or thread through any conversation I have around motorsport, which is networking is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that, Jono. Raquel, I know it's taken a little bit of time to get to you, but we're here and we can't wait to hear from you. It would be great to learn more about your journey into this role and into motorsport.
So I did kind of similar thing to Jono, but I did it in Spain. I studied mechanical engineering motorsport, and then I felt like if I wanted to get into this industry, I needed something more specific. So I studied at Brookes, Oxford Brookes, which is another university that does motorsport engineering. And I did a master's year in there in 2019, which is when COVID hit it. So after that, it was pretty difficult to get a job into the industry because everything had kind of stopped apart from design roles and everything, which I wanted to avoid because I wanted to be trackside. So I started working at a dumper company that used to do dumpers for lower series like brake car and open and single seaters and other series, which put me in contact then with an engineer that was looking for a mechanic for a brake car team. So I joined that team after that. I stayed in that team for 2 years as a mechanic. But then I realized that actually I've got my degrees for something and I really wanted to do engineering. So I started contacting more teams with open roles in engineering and eventually got a job in Silverstone for a British GT team. And then that took me to TF through my boss at that time, which is where I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to do work, and I've always wanted to be data engineer. So that journey eventually took me to where I wanted to be.
What's one thing that you would say helped you the most getting a job with WEC or in motorsport as a whole? Because it's getting so competitive. And you mentioned, it was around COVID time. So yeah, it'd be good to learn more about that.
I think it's pretty much been mentioned, but networking and just getting to the racetrack and just meeting the right people helped me quite a lot. Obviously, moving to the UK from Spain also helped me a lot because there's not a lot of motorsport in Spain at the level that I wanted to do it, which is WEC. So definitely moving and just getting into the racetrack and getting into teams, starting low, like not aiming to be where I wanted to be from the very beginning, starting from positions where you learn the very basics, you even just pressure tires or just help a number 2 mechanic doing fueling or something. That definitely helps you understand what the industry does and how to get into it in a better way.
Yeah, and you're also reiterating the point of networking again, so it just seems that this is a really recurring important thread. I would like to learn a little bit more about what's been your most exciting and interesting moment in motorsport. Sophie, maybe you'd like to share first.
Oh, my exciting one's Le Mans last year. It was my first Le Mans, first time I'd number one a GT car. So yeah, I was well excited, well nervous, when my chief mechanic Chris first asked me to #1 at Le Mans, I was like, honestly thought he was joking. And yeah, it was definitely a highlight of my career. Made my year last year.
What does preparation look like in the lead up to Le Mans?
It's massive. A lot of hours in workshop, a lot of car prep, a lot of stripping, checking. Yeah, there's a lot of prep that goes on behind the scenes before we even get to the race meeting.
And how far out before Le Mans did you find out that you were going to be #1?
I can't remember. I think it was maybe a couple of weeks before, maybe. I can't. It wasn't early on. It was a few weeks prior.
Yeah.
So yeah,
quite
I
intense,
was #2 last year, or a mechanic we call it, last year. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I felt pretty proud to get there that quickly on my first one.
Yeah, that's incredible. And a 2-week turnaround as well, but maybe sometimes not having too long to think about it is the better way to jump into something like that. But very, very cool. Tegan, how about you? Have you got any interesting or your most exciting part of being in motorsport?
I'm also going to say Le Mans. Last year was my first one was 2 years ago, which was where we entered a LMP2 with the team I was previously with. And we came second in class, which was amazing. Like, to go to Le Mans and get a trophy your first year is pretty incredible. But then last year we had 4 cars as a team. So from going from 1 car to 4 cars was a major, major jump. Like Sophie said, like the prep work that goes on behind the scenes, and just even getting the people there, it takes months and months of planning. And then we also got a podium last year with one of our cars, which was also really, really special. So yeah, I think Le Mans is just, if people haven't been, it's just like the most amazing event from a spectator point of view to being a part of a team. It's just amazing.
I haven't been yet, but I really want to go. And it sounds like for anyone listening, maybe that would be a really good opportunity to start your networking if that's what you would like to do. What's a piece of advice you would give to someone who's wanting to work in like a data engineering role or an engineering role? And what sort of qualities do you think make a good engineer, Jono?
I think I've touched on it already, but yeah, you need to get to the track, get working, get understanding racing and what makes the car work. And in terms of qualities, I think, the obvious one is the technical knowledge. And I think that's a prerequisite. You need to understand vehicle dynamics. You need to understand how the car works, the tire and the driver, how they all link together. But I think as well, as a race engineer, the softer or the personal skills are also very important. So I'd say the most important thing is you need to be calm. Calm heads make good decisions. And I think the race engineer is always the person speaking on the radio. So everyone feeds off of you. And if you're in a flap on the radio, then the drivers and the mechanics all pick up on it.
And do you think there are any other routes in other than university? Do you think it's possible?
Nowadays, there's so much data and it's much more technical. I think there's less. I know some race engineers that have been drivers before, and there's definitely massive advantages from that. Some that have worked up from being a mechanic, and that gives another dimension where they've got the hands-on technical experience, and for them that's a massive bonus. But yeah, I think especially in endurance racing, there's so much maths and data that goes behind running the car and the strategy. I'd always recommend the degree route.
Really good advice there, Jono. I can see lots of questions coming in the chat. If you would like to ask any questions to any of our panelists, please pop them in the Q&A function, because then I won't miss them and I'll definitely get them asked to whoever you would like to ask those questions to. Raquel, over to you. I would love to know what aspect of your role has been sort of something you didn't expect, or, that was surprising to you that you weren't expecting when you first went into the role.
So, because my background is mechanical engineering, I didn't expect so much electronic work. So last year, when I first started in the role, I had to learn to make looms. I had to learn how all the electrical side of the car works, which I was lacking from university because, as I said, everything was sort of based on mechanical things. So everything else I would have some understanding of, but the electronical side, it was a little bit weak. So I had to learn all last year, kind of on the spot, about systems, about how everything connects in the car, what looms, connectors, what feeds from the battery, what not feeds from the battery, things like that that I didn't know beforehand. So and as I said, it was a little bit of a learning on the spot. So it was challenging at times.
And you mentioned there twice about looms. For anyone who doesn't know what looms are, can you explain a little bit more and also how they're made?
So the looms are basically the big chunks of cable that connect everything sensor-wise in the car and everything that's related to an electrical system, and they're made out of separate cables that join all the systems together and basically feed from the battery of the car. And also they link to the data loggers that receive all the data from the car that then we're able to download and analyze.
It's really fascinating how it all works. So moving on now, what's one thing you wish you did more of earlier on in your career, in hindsight, that you think would have been useful? So over to you, Tegan. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one.
Not useful, but I definitely wish I had taken more pictures. I think like just capture the moment sometimes. That would have been useful. I don't know. I think I was so lucky from such a young age. I was like, I'd say people would say like speaking to different people and reaching out to different people, but I felt like I'd done that I was so lucky growing up. I
How
don't
did
know.
you do a lot of your outreach?
Maybe not think or not be so narrow-minded in the fact that, okay, I want to get to F1 and that's like the pinnacle of motorsport, because working in endurance racing, I think you don't think of F1 like that so much. Like F1 is like, obviously the standard is so high and like the level of driving and what goes on behind the scenes, but like especially like WEC at the moment, it's so technical. It's got so many ex Formula One drivers in, the level of the cars and the performance. I think, yeah, maybe not just thinking F1 is my goal, maybe like accepting like opportunities in other areas as well.
And just really quickly, how did you do a lot of your outreach? Was it on LinkedIn? Was it emails? How did you find contacts?
So I done my dissertation quite a lot on like women in motorsport and things like that, which helped. I reached out to a lot of people on LinkedIn through that. And yeah, a lot of networking. I was also quite lucky. When I was at university, as well as working at Silverstone, I worked in the touring cars a little bit. So yeah, just going to event, just speaking to absolutely everybody, like speaking to the guests, speaking to the mechanics, the drivers, like anyone and everyone. You don't know which person could lead you down a different path.
Really, really great advice. Thank you for that, Tegan. Paola, I can see you've joined us. Lovely to see you. Can you hear us? Can't hear you, but I'll give you a moment to just sort your audio out. Sophie, I'd love to ask you the same question too. What's one thing you wish you did more of earlier on in your career? Maybe to accelerate the process. I don't know. Maybe it's also taking photos and, enjoying the moment more that in hindsight you would have thought would be useful.
I think Tina's right. I think taking a lot more photos, but at the time, you take it quite seriously. Like everything is. I think I've taken everything quite professionally and seriously in the weekends, that you're so focused in you wanting to get the car over the finish line that when it has gone over the finish line, you're like, oh, I should have just taken a photo on the grid. So yeah, I think Tina's right. Just enjoy the moment a little bit more. Yeah, I think I don't regret anything else.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think I remember Alonso said the same after his retirement. And when he came back in, he said, I just never really enjoyed it until I wasn't in it. And then I learned to always enjoy it. So I love that piece of advice, to enjoy the journey as well. I have another question. So, Jono, are there any roles in motorsport that are often overlooked, but are actually really, really fun and exciting to do? Or perhaps people just don't know about them?
I don't know. Yeah, I've always been so focused on the race engineering side, I think, the guy talking to the car, it's always been the glamorous one that I've aimed for. So I've not really thought about that so much. Rather than the interesting one, I think I'll talk about the people that I think are maybe underappreciated. So, the tire guys that are always at the back that are running around collecting tires and scraping rims, and the mechanics and the fuelers. I think they all deserve a big shout out.
And the carbon guys.
And the carbon guys, exactly. They always get the worst end of the deal, and they're always there all night repairing smashed up bumpers and splitters.
And the truckies.
And the truckies. And can you give us a little bit more of an insight into, those roles and how that can also help you as like another pathway or journey into learning motorsport, rather than always looking, far ahead for Formula One and what looks really, really glamorous, but just other ways of just gaining experience, understanding the lay of the land, the different roles that people are playing. Can you tell us more about those roles that, people may not know about?
Yeah, I think people always focus on F1, but I think if you want to get to the top of motorsport, you need to understand all sorts of different racing and how broad it is. I spent a lot of time working in the junior formulas, and I think that gives you a real good idea of how to do the job and who's up and coming, and you learn a lot more about racing than just seeing the big glamorous championships like WEC or F1.
Yeah, I love that. And it seems that whenever I listen to podcasts or I speak to anyone who's made it to F1, they've all spent many, many years, sometimes decades, working in other roles that were not F1 to be able to get to where they are. So I think it's really important to bring that to, the conversation, to make people realize that there's great other ways to learn about motorsport. I've had a question come in that says, what's the difference between race engineering and data engineering? Raquel, I think this will be a good one for you.
So the race engineer is the one that coordinates all of us into what comes into racing. So he would be the one talking to the car during the race, managing the strategy and managing the mechanics and the pit stops and just bringing everything together. Whereas a data person, it's basically monitoring what happens to the car, what the car is on track, through the data, through telemetry, just making sure that every system work, and supporting the race engineer is not as involved as he is with everything else. So obviously I would still talk to the mechanics. I will still make sure that if I see something in the car that's not right, they know, and just collaborate with them. But the main person that integrates everything is the race engineer. Same with the drivers. I would provide data to the drivers. I would, if they need any help on the driving style, I would assist. But the race engineer is the main person that they would go to if they have a question, or if they want to know how the race is going to be, what is it going to entitle, and all that. The data person is basically a support role.
And how easy is it to transition between those two roles?
Well, I guess if I wanted to become a race engineer, I would first gather some experience on what the data side of it and all that is, and just work with really good engineers to have an idea on what you need to do and how they manage everyone. And especially, as I said, managing people, you have to be a people person, I think. So learning all those soft skills would also help you transition from one to another, and just know what you need to do in every sort of situation.
Really, really insightful. And to get into race engineering, should you take mechanical engineering or motorsport engineering, or could both work?
I think both of them could work. The motorsport might give you a more general insight on what racing is, because mechanical is, you could be targeting mechanical design, or you could be targeting so many other engineering paths that's not just racing. But motorsport would give you the kind of the straight path, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does make sense. Thank you so much for sharing that. we've had a question from Emily come through who said, how would you recommend networking if you can't easily get to a track? I know we briefly mentioned LinkedIn, but do you have any other suggestions of ways of getting in touch and networking? So, Sophie?
Email different teams for work experience. Find your local team if you can't travel. Ask if you can start low. Start cleaning bodywork, cleaning tires, scraping tires, anything, making cups of tea. And then once you sort of get in and work yourself in the door, you build that trust and you get to learn more on what you want to do.
Thank you so much for that, Sophie. And Tegan, do you have any suggestions if people are living far from a track?
I'd also say like certain events are also really helpful. Autosport in January is always a really good networking event. Even like now, after working in the industry, it's actually a really nice event just to go to and just catch up with lots of different people. And also things like this, just joining different webinars, speaking to different people, seeing what they're doing. I also think social media is playing a massive role in stuff like this at the moment as well. Like reaching out to other girls that are like passionate about motorsport. You can go watch it together or going to different events. Like just there's so many different ways of doing it. I think finding like obviously helps if you have friends that like doing the same thing as well. But yeah, I'd say Autosport is probably a really good one to go to though. If you're not too keen on going to track straight away or you're not too sure like where to go, Autosport is a pretty good starting point.
Love all those suggestions there, Tegan. And also, if I could throw one in there, is get involved on the Girls on Track UK Facebook group. You know, put up a post about what you do, start responding to other posts. It's a really great way to meet other people and just get your name out there. I think you'd be surprised on some of the people that are also in that group who might just see your post. Paola, it looks like you might be back with us. Hey, we can hear you. Welcome.
I had to take Zoom, so yeah, now it's working.
Ah, that's great. It's good that you're able to join us. Would you like to give us a little bit of an intro to your role? I've got some questions I'd love to ask you as well, and maybe tell us what you're up to at the moment.
Okay, so my role in TF is PR and marketing manager, and I started in motorsport in 12 years ago when I was so young, and I was 18, and I decided to start with the university at 24 because I was quite confused if my role was more about manager, I mean like team manager or team coordinator, or more marketing. And then I saw that the direction of motorsport were growing a lot in the marketing, social media, communication, and so on. So when my idea was right on what I want to do in the life, I decided to start with the university, and I did a degree in marketing and communication, and followed by a master in motorsport. This was a specialist marketing in motorsports. So it took 5 years of studying, but at the same time, I was also working. So it was quite hard. And yeah, so I've been working for Lamborghini since 2 years ago. And then I decided to move to find new experience, new people, and new championship, because this is my second season in WEC. Before I did the GT World Challenge, which is important as a championship, but of course the WEC is the major championship in GT, because we are doing GT there, and that's it.
That's really fascinating to hear another, journey in going to university a little bit later on, and also, just a slightly different angle to what a lot of people do, which is really fascinating. I'd love to ask you, if someone reached out to you for some work experience or for some advice to do, photography, media, PR, content creation, what would you want to see in that outreach that would catch your eye and make it, interesting for you to want to respond?
I think in motorsport is important. I mean, from my side, when I decide the people that have to work with me, their disponibility at each time. I mean, if there is something to change at 1 in the night, for example, you have to be there to do it, because on a race week, it's very important to be there at each time. And something that happens a few years ago with two new guys, and they were so late on responding when we have to change something. For example, for the copies, is very important because you have to follow the race and you have to know what you have to text. I mean, for social media. And also you have to be able to do many things. I mean, I can do graphics, I can do the copies, I can post as well. So I want to see the same on the people which has to work with us, because I can't work with someone that only can do copies. I need a person which can do a lot of things together. This is something that I look for people. So yeah, Sophie.
Yeah, really interesting. Sophie, you've got something to add to that? Oh no, I thought she said something.
No.
That's okay. Paola, if someone's wanting to build their portfolio of like, photography or content creation, what sort of advice would you give them in terms of tracks to turn up to and how they can get access? Is it easy just to turn up and take, photos? What advice would you give?
You mean to work for a team, or generally to be there as a fan, or for try an experience?
No, more just building portfolio. So, turning up to a karting track, taking photos, not working for a team as such, but, trying to get as much added to their portfolio without trying to get into the F1 paddock, for example, to take photos there.
To take photos is not easy because you need. It's not easy to explain because to start to do photo in motorsports, you need to start with the insurance. You need to start with such an experience that the teams can say, okay, you are a good photographer. But even if you are very young and you want to start, it's important that you start working with a good photographer because they have the eye on how to capture a good picture. I mean, for the drivers in the box, for the car on track, each angle is important, and there are some photographers which are very special on it. So there are many photographers in motorsport, but I think that which are very, very good, there are like 10, 15 maximum. And for example, Jamie Price is an American photographer, and usually he does some webinar or something like this. I saw on his page, which he teaches to, I don't know, new photographers or new video makers on how to catch the right photo. This is very important. So if you go on the racetrack and you do the photos like I can do, I'm not a good photographer. You will never enter as an official photographer. You have to follow these guys and be with them. They are very helpful. So yeah.
Some really good advice there about, learning the different angles and being creative and unique in your approach. So thank you so much for that. Sophie, we've had a question come in asking, what exercises do you do to train for pit stops? Do you have a good routine?
Yes and no. Work kind of gets in the way of the routine, but I try and go climbing, like bouldering, indoor bouldering, or outdoor swimming quite a bit when I'm at home. And then when we're away on event, we've got a physio, Jerry, that does warm-ups for us pre pit stops. So we do sort of short dynamic stretches, little warm-ups.
And when you're
dance
applying,
routine, if anyone wants to see. Sorry, Paola sometimes puts it on our social media, so if anyone ever wants to follow it, they can see all the mechanics doing the workout in the garage. It's quite funny.
Oh, great suggestion. That would be really cool. So if anyone wants to see what actually does go on in terms of the warm-up, check out their social media. How does the selection work for the pit stop crew? Is there a fitness test there?
There's no test. The pit stop crew is mechanics, so you've got 4 mechanics per car, and you have 2 gunners and 2 hangers. So 2 gunners are you gun the wheel on and off, and the hangers are the ones that puts the wheel on the car for you to gun. There's no selection. It is just whoever Tom Ferrier and Chris decide to be mechanics on the car.
Oh, good to know about how people can get involved as a pit stop crew once they're a mechanic. Paola, I have another question for you that's come in, which is asking, where is the Masters in Motorsport Marketing available? Do you know all the options, or maybe just the one you did?
Which one was the question? Sorry.
Where are Masters in Motorsports Marketing available? Do you know?
I'm from Italy, so I don't know there in UK.
What about in Italy too? We do have quite a global audience tuning in.
There is the Experience Motorsport, which is a master, and on the same master, they have PR, journalists, how to do website for motorsport, and media stuff, and engineering. So this is a good master. It's based in Maranello, close to Ferrari.
Do you think it's necessary to do a motorsport marketing degree, or could you do a marketing degree and then perhaps do your dissertation on motorsport?
Well, in my opinion, the experience is the first master. So yeah, on the master was helpful, but it was not so important. Is an important paper to have. For example, if you have to work for a manufacturer, but the experience is everything. For example, when I was in the lessons, they were teaching something that I learned during the experience, and it was just a repeat. So yeah, I think the experience is very important, and also to find people on the right moment that trust in you. This is also important in my role, I mean, because
That sounds like magic, that part, Paola. What advice would you give about finding people at the right moment?
you have to prove to people that you are very passionate, and you have to insist, like, I really want this job, I want to learn, I want to start working there, and give me an opportunity and I will show you that I can do it. I did like this. I was very determined when I started before the university with, I want to mention Federica Teneggi, that she's a Lamborghini coordinator, and she helped me a lot. I told her, I really want this job. I want to try. I know the others did the university. At the moment, I have no paper about the university, so I know it's important. But and she say, okay, I give you an opportunity and show me that you are good in this job, and then I start to study marketing. Because at the start, I told you I was quite confused if do the team manager or go in the marketing. So it took 2 years with experience with Lamborghini to understand this, and then I say, okay, I want to do marketing and I want to grow in the communication side. Yeah.
Really great and really, really insightful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So why do you think, in your opinion, people working in motorsport more often than not choose it as a lifelong career? It seems no one ever wants to leave. What does it offer that perhaps another industry does not? Tegan?
Travel. I mean, we're all super lucky. Like doing WEC, we get to travel all over the world. I mean, even during the European Le Mans series, we get to travel all over Europe. A lot of us done Asian Le Mans this year as well, which was pretty exciting. We all went over to Malaysia for a week, and then we went back. We went to Dubai and to Abu Dhabi. But yeah, I think it's so hard once you're in it. I feel like it would be so difficult to then go to a normal kind of 9 to 5 job when you're so used to having, like, when you're at track, no day is the same. Like you're doing scrutineering or you're doing photos, like you're always busy, you're always running around. Like I personally couldn't sit at a desk all day. I think I'd go crazy, like I just couldn't do it. Like, and yeah, just being able to work in different environments, working around different cultures, different people, like, yeah, it's no, I don't think it's a job like anything else. So once you're in it, it's pretty hard to leave.
Love that. Really good start to answering that question. And Raquel, do you have anything to add? And maybe you can share a bit of an insight to what, the fun side of a race weekend looks like for you in
I
terms of
think
exploring the country.
I think Tegan summed it up pretty well. I wouldn't see myself working on a 9 to 5 desk in an engineering company. I just find it so boring. Like even in between events when I have to be at home or work from home and just do my job through from home, it feels weird. Like I'm not used to it. So I'm kind of like, where are we going next? When are we going? When are we traveling next day? When are we leaving for the next racetrack? Um, it's all very full on every day that you're in an event. So it's really difficult to then go back to 0% energy from a 200% kind of day. So I don't think if you want to work in this industry and you think that you're made for this, it's really difficult to then go back to something else.
Love that different angle as well. Jono, do you have anything to add from your experience?
Yeah, I think from an engineering perspective, it's the kind of instant verification of whether you've done a good job. Like you might work in aerospace and work on a component, and it takes 10 years for it to be validated and signed off. Or similar in automotive, it might be 2 years or 5 years until it goes into production. But in motorsport, you can do a setup change, send it straight for qualifying, and stick it on pole. Yeah, and I think personally, I'm not really interested in going to work for someone to make money for them. Whereas in racing, I get to win. I like winning.
I love that insight. This is such a good question. It's bringing out some really good answers. Sophie, do you have anything to add to that one?
I think Jono's nailed it. I think you can see the instant results, and that's what I pretty like about it as well. And the travel, like every now and then you might get the odd day off, get to experience some good food, get some instant results, meet great people. Yeah, I think there's so many benefits to it.
Amazing. Love that. So Evie's asked a question, Tegan. How long is the process of organizing big events for the team like Le Mans, for example?
A long time. So Le Mans is always in June. So obviously the WEC cars get automatic entries to Le Mans as part of the calendar. But then there's also, I think it's 12 to 14 like guest entries as well, which don't come out until February. So those guest entries can either be like gifts or like if you'd won a championship, certain championships you get entries. The Asian Le Mans Championship, which we compete in, that doesn't finish until the middle of February. And if you win the class in that, you also get an entry. So it's kind of difficult. Especially from my point of view, like you try and plan, okay, you're going to have 2 cars, but then like last year we planned to have 2 cars and then we had 4 cars. So obviously that then throws a big spanner into the works, like when you're only 3 months away from an event. But I'd say I probably like 6 months before you start obviously thinking about it, you start thinking about the people, like the clothing, you have giveaways, you have posters, like the hotels we book probably as soon as the event finishes this year, we'll book the hotels for next year. Just because obviously there's so many teams, there's so many people that come to watch it. But yeah, it's different parts of it you can book in different stages. But yeah, at the moment, for example, we don't have the official timetable is not out yet for Le Mans, so we're still holding fire on what we can book like travel wise and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I've got all the giveaways I've got signed off. So if you're coming to Le Mans, come and find us. We've got loads of giveaways. All our driver suits are signed off, all our team wear signed off. So yeah, it comes in stages.
I love that. If there was another reason to go to Le Mans, that's definitely one of them.
I have
Is there a period of your year where it gets a little bit quieter, or is it quite full on the whole year through?
It's full on the whole year through. Yeah, I'd say if we maybe didn't do Asian Le Mans, so that kind of covers December, January, February, which I guess is quite a lot of teams kind of like downtime. If we didn't do that, then maybe we'd have more downtime. But yeah, I'm so glad we do something over winter, because I think like especially like when we went to Malaysia in December last year, it was so warm. It was so nice. It was so nice to get out of the country for like 8 days just in a hotter climate. But yeah, that was, I guess, kind of our bit of downtime. Like in between Christmas and New Year, I guess you get downtime. Um, Unlike F1, we don't like Formula One go on a 2 week mandatory shutdown in the summer. We don't do that. Just like I guess we can't, like we physically couldn't stop working for 2 weeks mid-season. It just wouldn't work. Yeah, I personally don't like, obviously we go on holiday, like as individuals, people go on holiday and have their own downtime. But yeah, as a team, I'd say no one ever stops.
And do you all make every single race, or so you try and take your holiday around each race?
So we have kind of two crews in a way. We have our ELMS crew and then we have our WEC crew. And then there are some of us that do both championships. And then some that go back, some just do ELMS. Like Sophie this year is just doing WEC because obviously it's a new program. It's so much to focus on. But yeah, kind of, yeah. It depends on the person and also what they want to do. Like some people like doing both. Some people like being out the country all the time. Other people just want to do one championship and focus on that because they have other commitments. I'd say probably like 75 to 80% of us do both championships. And like, for example, if Sophie's not doing the ELMS stuff, she'll still help sometimes on like the prep work, like that goes on behind the scenes for it. So yeah, everyone inputs to both, I'd say quite a lot.
Love that. Really, really interesting. And one last question for you, Tegan. You mentioned you went from 2 teams to 4 teams. How do you suddenly find the additional staff? Do you have like a database, or where do you find people? And perhaps there are other teams also fighting over the same talent as you are.
Ask our team boss. Yeah, I think that's we were quite lucky last year, so we actually brought back quite a lot of people that had worked for the team previously. And obviously it's quite a lot to ask with someone. Like, for example, I couldn't see myself not working in motorsport, but sometimes people that have worked in it for 5 or 6 years then decide, like, okay, like it's too much for me, like because the travel is a lot, like it's a lot on like your relationship and your just on everything. So then yeah, we had a few people that just came back for Le Mans as like a one-off event. So that was quite helpful, and like yeah, we're a nice enough team that people want to come back and do like Le Mans with us. Yeah, we don't really have, I wouldn't say we have like a pool of people or like a talent pool that we have. I think on Facebook there's like pit lane connections, which I think if like we were really struggling with, like you could always put like messages on certain forums like that, or like on different, and reach out to other people. But no, we're quite lucky. I mean, it was a struggle, like probably like 4 weeks before we confirmed all the crew, which to me, I'm like super organized, like so I was like, oh my gosh, are we gonna have enough people? But yeah, we were pretty good.
Love that. Really, really insightful there, Tegan. So we're coming to an end of the webinar, but I'd love to ask one last question of you all. I'm going to start with Paula because she has to run. Paula, if there is a younger version of yourself sitting at home right now with a big dream to work in motorsport in the role that you're in now, what words of advice would you give them?
I think I already answered before to something about it. I'm quite late, so will be shorter. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just in like 3 or 4 words. Oh, she's disappeared. Okay, let's jump over to Jono. Same question to you. In a couple of words, what sort of what advice would you give to someone to inspire them not to give up?
Just follow your passion. I've had a normal job; it was rubbish. So keep going with motorsport. It's great.
Cool, good start. How about you, Sophie?
Yeah, keep enjoying it. Enjoy the journey. Be determined. Do what you want to do. Anyone can do it.
Love that. Anyone really, really can do it if they believe in themselves. How about you, Raquel?
Yeah, just if you want to do it, you will be able to. Just get involved. Just follow what you need to do and enjoy what you every single step of the journey. Even if it takes you 3 years, it takes you 3 years. If it takes you 5, it takes you 5. But just keep pushing for it.
I love that. I think it's a really, really important message as well, that it can take years and years. And also, as we mentioned earlier on in the webinar, to enjoy the journey and, take photos, take more photos. How about you, Tegan, to round that one up?
I'd say like it's so hard. You're always going to get pushbacks and people say no. And I think accept that it's the right opportunity. I believe like the right opportunity will come. Um, like like I said earlier, I got rejected by like I didn't get replies from so many people that I emailed, and now I'm working in a paddock with like ex Formula One drivers and working for an amazing team. Like the right opportunity will come along. So just don't give up. And I know it's hard, like at the time when you're just not getting responses or you're not getting replies, but yeah, just keep pushing and the right thing will come along.
Love that. Really perfect way to close out this webinar. But I'd love to say a massive thank you to Girls on Track UK and Motorsport UK for making this event possible, and to all of our incredible speakers for sharing your time with us. I know it's very, very valuable, but you've given us some really insightful words there, and you will be inspiring, a future generation of people wanting to work in motorsport. So that's really, really cool. And also to all of you who participated and joined us for this webinar, thank you for coming along and also asking your incredible questions. For anyone who isn't already a Girls on Track UK community member like I am, our community is totally free to join, and we now have over 8,500 members, and we would love to welcome more of you to join. And if you have any friends that aren't already a member, tell them and get them to come along. The link's going to go in the chat, so you'll be able to find out how to join there. And don't forget, this webinar is also going to be available for you to watch back in case you want to, get some of those nuggets that you might have missed. And there are all the other webinars as well that you can go and watch. And I've watched many of them myself, and there's some really, really great conversations. You also can join our mailing list, so make sure you click the link that's also in the chat. Once this webinar has finished, there will be a link to a quick survey. We'd really love for you to complete that. It helps shape our community, and we would love for your feedback on what other things you would like to see more of. But the last thing I have to say is a massive thank you to all of you. Thank you again to our wonderful panelists for coming along. I hope you enjoyed it and found it really, really insightful. And don't forget to keep an eye on your mailboxes for news about upcoming events and opportunities. And good night or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for all joining.